Hi, it's Ryan from Fowler Photography, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to get a black background in nature photography to create images like this in camera with a flash and a very simple setup. So let's get into it. Our location for this video is the amazing Springbrook National Park, in more specifically the Natural Bridge section. And you're going to see as a few clips come up and play now that it's such a beautiful little waterfall that runs into a cave. So you can really get some fantastic looking photographs here. And of course it makes for a great backdrop for this video. Setup for the images that we're going to be capturing is a Fuji X-T2 body. You can use any body, but this is my secondary body. I've got the Fuji X-T3 filming at the moment, and on here I've got the 50 to 140. Now primarily this would work better with a macro lens, but I don't have a macro lens with me, so the 50 to 140 is going to have to be my weapon of choice for this. Now, to actually make this effect work, it's actually quite similar to product photography in creating a black background. So we're going to use a flash, and I've got a Godox TT685 for Fujifilm here, and then I've got this little diffusion panel. Because the light coming from this flash is really harsh, this diffusion panel just helps spread it and soften it to create some really lovely little effects and just a nice touch of beautiful soft light on what we're going to be photographing. Now, the most important part here is probably the settings that we're going to be using. So what we need to do is shut down the aperture and the settings to what would create a dark image or a black frame, because we're not letting enough light through the camera. To compensate for that, to actually light up our subject, that's where the flash is going to come in. So we're going to shoot at 1/250th of a second, ISO 200, and start off at about f5.6 with a quarter power on our flash as well. And that should give us a pretty good starting point to create these black background nature images. And it's going to really look great to isolate the subject. What I will mention here is that I have not attached the lens hood onto the lens. And the reason for that is it will stick out to about here. If the flash is hitting the diffuser on the end of the lens, and I've got it wedged between the focus ring and the actual zoom ring so that it's got a nice little stable base, with the lens hood it would create a shadow on our subject, which means that we're going to actually be darkening what we're trying to light up from the diffusion panel. If you are interested in one of these diffusion panels, I've linked some on Amazon down below, and they are so cheap, but for doing macro photography they are really, really useful. You can also get little attachments to go onto the end of a speed light as well, so I've linked one of those that I've tried before and would use for this type of work. But they are super cheap and super functional. So if you're into macro photography and you want to create an effect similar to this, I'd certainly recommend picking one up. Now, with that in mind, what we're going to do is head out and keep walking down the footpath, and we're going to try and find a few little close-up subjects that we can focus on, and I'll give you a few more tips along the way. So as we've been walking along the path, there's this little caterpillar with a flowery thing on a branch, and it looks quite pretty. The caterpillar is just staying still. It's a tiny bit of rain just starting to drop on us at the moment, but I'm going to actually photograph this. Now, one tip that I do want to give you is that if you've got distance between your subject and your background, this technique's going to work even better. Because you're shooting to try and eliminate all the natural light, then we want to keep the background further back, or if the background is in shadow, that's going to help as well. So right now, just going to get the viewfinder up to my eye, and there's a few little techniques you can use to try and get this best. And what I'm actually doing right now is trying to adjust the focus manually. Now I know roughly where the caterpillar is and I can see him through the EVF, but it's just a matter of trying to get the minimum focusing distance right to be able to create the right shot that I want to get. And I can see here that the EVF is actually zoomed in and I can see focus peaking lines around the caterpillar just as he's blowing in the wind, and about there. So I can grab that shot there and try and take a few variations of the shot as well. So I can see where, and the wind's just picked up, so he's moving quite a bit. And if I review on the back of the camera, I can see that I've got this lovely caterpillar on the other side of a leaf, or underside of a leaf, and it's just starting to fall off into shadow behind him from the flash, and the background has gone pretty much completely dark. So creating this technique is great. I did have to adjust the flash power a little bit. I took it up 1/3 of a stop, so it's on 4 1/3 power, or 1/4 1/3 power. But just to create this image, I think it looks really lovely, and that's exactly what worked for this shot. So we're going to keep going, and I might share a couple more little tidbits with you. We've just got a fly here that's landed on a leaf, and it's actually staying quite still. So I'm going to do the same thing, and the light has increased just a little bit, so just adjusting, and I really can't get overly close, certainly not macro lens on this lens, but I've adjusted the actual light. So the strobe on top is 1/4 minus 1/3 power, and settings are 1/250th of a second, f4, ISO 200, and that's giving us a really beautiful shot. What you can also do is, if you don't have a macro lens, then you can also crop in on images as needed. With this fly shot, I'm using 50 to 140, and it's not designed as a macro lens, but because digital cameras have such a high resolution now, and I'm not going to be using this image for print, I'll be able to crop in on this and give it that real macro feel while still retaining so much detail. And that's kind of the message I also want to share with you. If you don't have a macro lens, you don't need to go and buy one for this purpose. You can use the gear you've got. You just need to use it to the best of its ability, and then once you've done that, then you know what you need for an upgrade in future. Thanks so much for watching the video. I hope that you found this useful in creating some images like these, and that you can apply these techniques to not just macro and nature photography, but you can also apply these principles into things like product photography as well. So if you have learned something, hit that like button, leave a comment down below, subscribe with the bell icon so you don't miss any future videos. See you in the next one.